If you find my yoga videos useful, please give the videos a thumbs up and subscribe so that you don't miss any. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers and I'm getting pretty close, so I really appreciate your support. Everyone, welcome back to Light on Yoga explained by a non-Iyengar yoga teacher. I know it's been quite a while. I've been busy and also not in the mood with lockdown number 3. I think we're in week 8 of lockdown number 3 here in England right now. So, you know, it's been hard to be motivated even though there's also nothing to do. I'm sure some of you can relate. But I'm excited to get back into it. And today we're talking about Lolasana. Here's the picture in the book. It's plate 83, this one. Let me read you a little bit about what it says. Lola means tremulous, moving to and fro or dangling like an earring. So yes, in like the English variation, this is earring pose. In this posture, the legs and feet are kept as in Gomukhasana, so crossed one over the other. The hands are placed on the floor by the side of the hips and the body is raised up and supported only by the hands and wrists. Then one balances, swaying slightly forward and backward, the movement resembling that of a dangling pendant. So let's talk about this for a moment, because this is one of those yoga poses that looks pretty simple, but will take you probably, if I'm honest, years to actually be in the pose. You might have been able to tell from the thumbnail that I'm not personally right now in a state of physical fitness to be able to actually swing to and fro like an earring in this pose. My toes do not leave the floor at this moment, even when I'm using blocks, which we'll talk about that too. And even when I was doing yoga for at least an hour every single day for years, at one point in my life, I could just barely get a little sliver of space between my toes and the ground. And I had really strong arms, shoulders, core, pelvic floor. You know, I could do like 100 chaturangas without my knees down in one practice, but I still could barely lift up in Lolasana. So even though it's really simple, it's actually complicated in that you need to develop such intense strength throughout the body to be able to do this. If you have wrist problems, you're gonna wanna skip this. Otherwise, you should be able to practice this. There aren't really many contraindications. So let's talk about the technique. Sit on the floor with the legs stretched straight in front. I wore red socks so you could see where my feet were today in the video. Place the palms on the floor by the side of the hips. Raise the seat, bend the right knee back. Oh, this is interesting, okay. Place the palms on the floor by the side of the hips. Raise the seat, easier said than done. Bend the right knee back, place the right sole beneath the left buttock and sit on it. So in Ashtanga yoga, which is a different lineage than Iyengar yoga, but it's the basis for all vinyasa yoga. In Ashtanga yoga, this Lolasana pose is sort of the transition pose of how you get out of poses and back into the vinyasa. So let's say I was doing Paschimottanasana, just a forward fold here over my legs. To get back into a vinyasa from here, I would do exactly what he's describing. Put my hands down, lift my butt off the floor, that I can at least do. Bend my right knee to get my right foot under my left butt cheek there. And then, let's see what he says after that. Bend the left knee back, and again, raising the seat, place the left sole beneath the right buttock and sit on it. So it's sort of like a really tight cross-legged pose. Let me back up so you can see. So as you can see, it's sort of like a really tight and narrow cross-legged seat. So if I'm just in a cross-legged position, I'd be like this, with my knees wide, my ankles crossed. It's gonna be the same thing basically, but you're gonna be tucked all the way in. So your knees are not gonna be wide, they're gonna be narrow, facing forward, all the way in together, hugging everything in. And already if you start to just feel this hugging in motion, that's a great start. So it's almost like you want to use every available muscle to lift in and lift up. So it starts with your thighs and your outer hips and just your whole sort of like legs, your calves, even holding up your heels up towards your butt cheeks. And then you're gonna tighten your pelvic floor. It's almost like you're trying not to pee and you're trying not to poop at the same time. Lifting everything in and up, hugging your belly in like when you engage your core like in a plank pose. And then that should give you a good, strong core foundation to lift everything up. Let's get back to the instructions. So the feet will be crossed so that the right shin is above the left calf. Keep the toes pointing backwards. Yep. Yep, and pointing your toes will also help keep everything engaged. Take a few breaths. Exhale, raise the trunk and legs off the floor and balance on the hands, stretching out the arms. So stretching out the arms really means pressing down into your palms. So that pressing down should help facilitate the lifting up of everything else. Gently rock the trunk and legs forwards and backwards. Breathe normally. So like I said, my feet are not coming off the floor at this stage, but it'd be kind of like this. And the reason you want to rock too for the vinyasa is that from here, eventually, if you practice Ashtanga for long enough, you can do the hop back. So you lift everything up, kind of rock forward, and then you shoot your legs back into plank. I'm not going to be doing that today. So rest on the floor and uncross the legs, recross the legs the other way, and again, balance on the hands. Balance as long as possible. So he's saying to even it out on both sides. Let's see, effects. This asana strengthens the wrists and hands, the muscles of the back and the abdominal organs. It makes the leg muscles elastic, and the minor muscles of the arms will be developed and toned. So it is a really, really great core exercise. And like I mentioned, not just for your core, your arms, your legs, your back, everything. So I really recommend practicing this because maybe you can hear I'm getting a little bit out of breath, even just from doing it for 1 second, because it is so intense. It's kind of like a high intensity exercise. Maybe you already work out a lot and yoga is not really your thing, but exercises or strength training is, in which case you can already get yourself off the ground, which is awesome. That's so great. If you're kind of like me and you are a little bit lazy, especially during all the lockdowns and everything, you're gonna wanna get either 2 blocks or you can do 2 thick books. I know it can be kind of hard to find books that are exactly the same size, so I wanted to find some right here while I was talking to you. Let's see, this one's pretty thick. Not as good as the block, so it's not gonna be as helpful if you need a little bit of assistance, but still better than nothing. And let's see, this one looks, let's see, is it about the same? Pretty close, I think that's close enough. So here, let's start with the books. In case you don't have blocks at home, grab 2 really thick books, the thickest you can find. Try to get them about even so that you're not really off kilter here. And the thing to remember is when you're using any kind of props at all, the whole point is that the prop is meant to replace something else. What do I mean by that? When you're using blocks, they are meant to replace the floor. So it's bringing the floor higher up to you. So what does that mean? It means that we want it to be flat and even, just like the floor. So we don't want it to be kind of like off kilter. You don't want to use something like a blanket because that's going to hurt your wrist. You're going to not have a firm, flat spot if you use something like a pillow or a blanket. So try not to use something like that. Try to use something that is just like the floor. Firm, flat, even. So same thing with the blocks. And I really like the cork blocks the best. I just think that they are the best because they're not too hard like wooden blocks, but they're also not as flimsy as foam blocks. I don't really like doing Lolasana with foam blocks because, again, your hands, when you're lifting up your entire body weight and pressing into the blocks, the foam blocks can be, they can give a little bit too much. So your palms can actually start to sink a little bit into the foam. So I personally don't prefer using those. If that's the only block you have, give it a try and see. You might want to use a book instead. So I can actually use this on the higher height. The higher you use a prop, like the higher the prop, the more space you're gonna have to try to get yourself up, so it's gonna be a little easier. So the lower you are down to the ground or on the ground, the harder it's gonna be. But let's go this way because the medium height allows me to put my whole hand comfortably on the block. Here's something else. Speaking of how the block or the prop is supposed to be the floor, a stand-in for the floor, you want your hands, so all the fingers and everything, to be on the block, not gripping around the edges. So make sure that you have lots of space. I like to kind of press down first into it. You don't always have to come into it. This is my opinion, not Iyengar's, obviously. You don't always have to come into it this way. That's like a little extra because it's hard to get your legs back there from in front. So sometimes I just like to come to it more so like from sitting or from Gomukhasana, like he said. So just kind of leaning forward, hugging everything in, pointing the toes, hugging the knees in and up, and then just lifting. And here's the thing. So even though right now it looks like I'm not doing it, I'm not doing anything, I am shaking. This is really hard, even though my feet are still on the floor. And so I'm getting out of breath, you can hear. Just doing that and holding it for as long as you can will do wonders. And if you really want to master Lolasana or add this into your practice, I highly recommend it. Like I mentioned, it's good for everyone. There aren't really any serious contraindications, just if you maybe have a wrist injury or sensitivity, carpal tunnel, that kind of thing, maybe lay off until that's resolved. But otherwise, this is a great one to add to really amp up your heart rate really quickly, work your whole body, and it's really fun once you finally get to feel a little bit of a lift and your foot hovers off the floor. But be patient with yourself because it takes a long time, and that makes sense. It's as it should. When you see people just flowing effortlessly through this kind of stuff, they've been doing it for a long time. And they might have even been doing something else beforehand, such as weightlifting or gymnastics or something else that has prepared their body. So don't get discouraged. Give yourself lots of time. Have fun with it. It's honestly fun. You can switch sides and do it again. And yeah, let me know what you think of this pose. If you like it, if you hate it, if you've tried it, comment any questions below. And please thumbs up this video, like it if you thought it was helpful. And I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.